The acceptance letter felt like glass in Sophia Chen's hands. University of Vermont, full academic scholarship, class of 2028. Her daughter Maya had worked for this. Straight A's through high school, volunteering at the animal shelter every weekend, student council president, debate team captain. Everything a mother could hope for. Everything Sophia had sacrificed for. And she couldn't afford to send her. The letter listed what the scholarship didn't cover: room and board, books, lab fees, health insurance, transportation. The university estimated these costs at $18,000 per year. Sophia had $340 in her checking account. The rent was 3 weeks overdue. The car had been repossessed last Tuesday. Her credit cards were maxed out, paying for Maya's SAT prep course and application fees to 12 different schools. She sat at the kitchen table of their studio apartment in Rochester, New York, where the radiator clanked but barely produced heat, where water stains spread across the ceiling like bruises, where roaches appeared no matter how much she cleaned. It was January 15th, 2024. Maya's 18th birthday was in 6 days. The first tuition payment was due in 7 months. It might as well have been $7 million. Sophia was 39 years old. She'd been 21 when she got pregnant with Maya, still in college herself, studying engineering at RIT. Maya's father, a classmate named Derek who'd seemed charming and promising, had disappeared the moment she told him. Literally disappeared. Changed his phone number, dropped out of school, vanished like smoke. She tried to find him for child support, but his family claimed they didn't know where he was. The legal fees to track him down would have cost more than she'd ever collect. So she'd done alone. Dropped out of school with 2 semesters left to finish her degree. Got a job as a technician at Benton Optical, a small company that manufactured prescription lenses for eyeglasses. The work was precise, demanding, required steady hands and good eyes and patience to get every measurement exactly right. She was good at it. Within 3 years, she was their best technician. The opticians requested her specifically because she never made mistakes. But good didn't mean well paid. She made $16.50 an hour. After taxes, that was about $2,100 a month. Rent was $950 for the studio apartment in a building that should have been condemned. Utilities, another $150. Food, transportation, Maya's school supplies, clothes as she grew, medical care when she got sick. The math never worked. Sophia had been living on credit cards and hope for 18 years. 3 months ago, Benton Optical had been bought by a larger corporation. Cost-cutting measures, they called it. Her entire department was laid off on a Friday afternoon with 2 weeks severance and a handshake from a manager who wouldn't meet her eyes. She'd filed for unemployment immediately. The $320 per week she received didn't cover rent, let alone everything else. She'd applied to 47 jobs in the past 3 months. Every optical lab in the region, every manufacturing facility, every position remotely related to her skills. Most didn't respond. The ones that did offered interviews, seemed interested, then went silent. She was either overqualified or underqualified. She had too much experience or not enough. She'd been out of work too long or her references weren't recent enough. The truth was simpler and darker. She was 39, a single mother with a gap in her employment. Company saw risk, not experience. Liability, not skill. She'd started applying to retail positions, fast food, anything. But even those jobs looked at her resume and asked why someone with 18 years of optical experience wanted to work at Target. The answer, because I'm desperate and my daughter needs to eat, wasn't what they wanted to hear. Maya came home from school at 3:30, her backpack heavy with textbooks, her face bright with the kind of optimism that broke Sophia's heart. She still believed the world was fair, that hard work was rewarded, that everything would work out because her mother had always made it work out. She didn't know how close they were to losing everything. "Mom, you won't believe what happened in Calc today," Maya said, dropping her backpack by the door. Mr. Patterson said my proof for the extra credit problem was the most elegant solution he'd seen in 20 years of teaching. He wants to submit it to a math journal. Sophia forced a smile. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you." Maya moved to the tiny kitchen area, barely 4 feet of counter space, and opened the refrigerator. Nearly empty. She closed it without comment, used to this. I'm not really hungry anyway. I had a big lunch. She hadn't. Sophia knew because she knew exactly how much money was on Maya's school lunch account. $3.40. Enough for one more meal. She meant to add money this week, but couldn't. Maya, we need to talk about college. Maya turned, her expression shifting from casual to concerned in an instant. She was beautiful, Sophia thought. Long dark hair, warm brown eyes, her father's high cheekbones and Sophia's determined chin. She looked so much older than 18. She'd been forced to grow up too fast. What about it? Sophia set the acceptance letter on the counter between them. You did everything right. This is an incredible achievement. But the scholarship doesn't cover living expenses. We need to figure out how to pay for housing, books, all the other costs. Maya's face closed down, that wall she'd learned to put up when things were bad. How much? About $18,000 for the first year. Where are we going to get $18,000? The question hung between them. Sophia wanted to say she'd figure it out, wanted to promise everything would be fine, wanted to be the mother who had all the answers. But she'd lied enough. Maya deserved the truth. I don't know yet, but we'll find a way. You're going to college, Maya. I promise you that. Maya's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. I could defer for a year. Work full-time, save up. No. Mom, I can help. I can get a job at the mall or the grocery store. No, Sophia repeated firmly. You're not deferring your dreams because I lost my job. You're not working retail when you could be studying engineering. You earned this scholarship. You're going to use it. Then how? Sophia didn't have an answer. Not yet, but she'd been solving impossible problems for 18 years. She'd solve this one too. She had to. That night, after Maya fell asleep in the Murphy bed they shared, Sophia sat at her laptop in the dark, the glow of the screen illuminating her face. She'd been scrolling through job listings for hours. Nothing. She switched to searches for financial aid, grants, loans. She'd already maxed out what Maya qualified for. Private student loans required a cosigner with good credit. Sophia's credit score was 520. At 2:47 a.m., exhausted and desperate, she clicked on a random link that promised alternative income opportunities. It led to a website about foreclosure auctions. Properties sold by banks, government agencies, and estates for pennies on the dollar. The site claimed people bought houses for a few $1,000s, fixed them up, and sold them for huge profits. Sophia had never owned property. The idea seemed absurd, but she kept reading. Some of the properties were commercial buildings. Warehouses, factories, stores. Could she buy something like that? Rent it out? Create an income stream? She navigated to a county auction site. Monroe County was having a property auction in 3 days, January 18th. She scrolled through the listings. Most were residential properties with minimum bids in the tens of thousands, way beyond what she could afford. But near the bottom of the list, she found something different. Industrial property, 14,782 square feet. Former Apex Precision Lens Manufacturing Facility. 1847, Genesee Street, Rochester. Condemned structure. As is, where is. No utilities. Buyer responsible for all cleanup, demolition, and environmental remediation. Minimum bid, $500. Sophia clicked on the listing. The description was sparse. The property had been seized by the city for unpaid taxes in 2019. Previous owner deceased. No heirs claimed the property. Structure built in 1952, vacant since 2016. Extensive fire damage in 2018. Roof partially collapsed. Walls unstable. Property sold with no warranty, no guarantees, no representations of any kind. There are 3 photos. The first showed a large brick building, 2 stories tall, with broken windows and graffiti covering the lower walls. The second showed the interior, charred and destroyed, debris everywhere, the ceiling open to sky. The third showed what remained of the roof, a tangle of twisted metal and blackened wood. It looked like a tomb, a disaster, the kind of property that would cost more to demolish than it was worth. But it was $500. Sophia had $340 in checking. She could scrape together another $160 if she skipped groceries this week. if she didn't pay the electric bill, if she pawned her laptop. She stared at the screen, her rational mind screaming that this was insane. She knew nothing about real estate, nothing about commercial property, nothing about manufacturing facilities. She'd be buying a condemned building she couldn't afford to fix or demolish. It would be throwing away money she didn't have. But another part of her, the part that had survived 18 years of impossible circumstances, saw something different. She saw 14,782 square feet of possibility. Maybe the land alone was worth something. Maybe she could salvage materials and sell them. Maybe someone would buy it from her for more than she paid. Maybe, just maybe, this was the kind of desperate gamble that desperate people had to take when every other door was closed. She created an account on the auction website. She entered her credit card information for the $50 registration fee. Her card was declined. She tried another. Declined. The third card, the one she'd been saving for absolute emergencies, went through. She was now registered to bid. Sophia closed the laptop and stared at the dark ceiling. What was she doing? This was madness. She should be applying for jobs, begging her landlord for more time, figuring out how to make her unemployment stretch further. She shouldn't be considering buying a burned-out factory for $500. But she couldn't stop thinking about it, about the possibility, however slim, that this could be something, that maybe, just maybe, the universe was offering her one chance to change everything. She didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, she told Maya she had a job interview. Not entirely a lie. She drove their neighbor's car, borrowed for $20, and a promise to return it with a full tank. The factory was on the east side of Rochester, in an industrial area that had been thriving in the 1960s and slowly dying ever since. Abandoned buildings lined the street. Empty lots filled with weeds. A few businesses still operating looked like they were hanging on by their fingernails. 1847, Genesee Street sat at the end of a dead-end road. The building was larger than the photo suggested. Red brick walls, weathered and stained. Windows on both floors, all broken, some boarded up. A chain-link fence surrounded the property, but the gate hung open, the padlock broken years ago. Sophia parked on the street and sat in the car for 5 minutes, gathering courage. Through the fence, she could see the front entrance. Heavy steel doors, rusted and dented. Above them, a faded sign, Apex Precision Lens MFG. She'd heard of Apex. Before working at Ben Optical, she'd applied there. They'd been one of the premier optical manufacturers in the Northeast, specialized in high-precision lenses for medical equipment, cameras, scientific instruments. But that was decades ago. The company had gone bankrupt in the early 2000s. The building had changed hands several times. She didn't know the details. She got out of the car and approached the fence. Signs were posted every few feet. No trespassing. Dangerous structure. Enter at your own risk. Condemned by order of the city of Rochester. She shouldn't go in. The auction listing explicitly stated the building was unsafe. But she needed to see it. Needed to understand what she was considering buying. Sophia slipped through the open gate and crossed the cracked parking lot. Weeds pushed through the asphalt. Broken glass crunched under her shoes. She reached the front doors and pulled. They didn't budge. She walked around the side of the building, looking for another entrance. A loading dock at the rear had a bay door partially open, hanging at an angle. Sophia climbed up onto the dock and ducked under the door. The smell hit her immediately. Mold, decay, something chemical and sharp. She pulled her coat over her nose and stepped inside. The interior was worse than the photos. The fire had gutted most of the first floor. Charred beams hung from the ceiling. Walls were black with soot. Equipment lay scattered and destroyed. She could see what had once been a production floor. Workstations in rows, now buried under debris. Offices along the far wall, their doors hanging open. Sophia walked carefully, testing each step. The floor felt solid enough, concrete beneath the ash and debris. She moved deeper into the building, her eyes adjusting to the dim light filtering through the broken windows. This had been a real manufacturing facility once. She could see the layout. Receiving area near the loading dock. Production floor in the center. Quality control stations. Finishing department. Shipping area. All of it destroyed now, but the bones were there. She climbed a metal staircase to the second floor, the steps creaking but holding. Up here, the damage was less severe. The fire had been contained mostly to the first floor, though smoke damage was everywhere. This level had been offices and storage. Filing cabinets tipped over, their contents spilled. Desks covered in years of dust and bird droppings. Windows shattered by weather and vandals. One office at the far end had a door that was still closed. Sophia tried the handle. Locked. She looked around, found a metal rod in the debris, and used it to pry the door open. It resisted, then gave way with a crack of splintering wood. Inside was different. The room had been sealed, protected from the worst of the fire and weather. It was an executive office. Large wooden desk, leather chair rotted but intact, bookshelves lining two walls. A safe in the corner, door open, empty. Photographs on the walls showing the factory in better days. Workers at their stations. Group photos at company picnics. An older man shaking hands with someone in a suit, a plaque being presented. Sophia moved closer to the photographs. The older man appeared in many of them. Distinguished-looking, thick glasses, kind face. One photo had a caption, Victor Apex, founder and president, 1952 to 2004. So this had been his office. The man who'd built this place. Sophia wondered what had happened to him, to his company, to all the people who'd worked here. She was about to leave when something caught her eye. Behind the desk, partially hidden by the overturned chair, was a filing cabinet. Unlike everything else in the room, this cabinet looked deliberately placed. Heavy, metal, painted a dull gray. She pulled the chair away and tried the drawers. All locked. Sophia knew she shouldn't. This wasn't her property. Not yet. Maybe never. But she'd come this far. She used the metal rod again, prying at the top drawer. The lock was old, rusted. It gave way after 3 tries. Inside were files. Dozens of them neatly organized. She pulled one out randomly. Technical drawings. Lens specifications. Patents. She flipped through another file. Financial records from the 1990s. Another file. Employee records, payroll, insurance documents. The second drawer contained more of the same. But the third drawer, when she finally pried it open, held something different. Personal files, letters, photographs, and a leather portfolio with Victor Apex's name embossed on the cover. Sophia opened it. The first page was a letter, handwritten, dated December 30th, 2015. To whoever finds this. If you're reading this, then I'm gone, and my company is gone, and everything I built has fallen apart. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I saw this coming. When you spend 50 years building something, you can feel when it's dying. My name is Victor Apex. I founded this company in 1952 with $800 and a dream to make the finest optical lenses in the world. For most of my life, I succeeded. Apex Precision Lens was the best. We supplied lenses to hospitals, universities, research institutions, NASA, the military. We made lenses that helped doctors see inside the human body, that helped scientists see distant galaxies, that helped soldiers see in the dark. I was proud of what we built. But business changed. Manufacturing moved overseas. Big corporations undercut our prices. Technology evolved faster than we could adapt. By the time I was 80 years old, I was watching my life's work crumble. I should have sold the company when I had offers. Should have retired and lived comfortably on the proceeds. But I couldn't let it go. This place was my child. The only child I ever had. So I kept fighting, kept trying, kept mortgaging everything I owned to keep the doors open. It wasn't enough. By 2010, we were bankrupt. By 2015, the building was being seized for taxes. By the time you're reading this, I'm probably dead, and none of it matters anymore. Except for one thing. Sophia's hands trembled as she turned the page. The letter continued. I never married. Never had children. Spent my whole life focused on this business instead of building a family. My sister Rose was my only family, and she died in 1998. Her daughter Catherine was like a daughter to me. I helped pay for her education. Sent her to college, then to graduate school. She became an engineer, got married, had a child of her own. But Catherine and I had a falling out in 2004. Something stupid, something about money and expectations and pride. Words were said that couldn't be taken back. We stopped speaking. I tried to reach out over the years, sent letters, called. She never responded. When I wrote my will in 2006, I left everything to her anyway. The company, the building, my personal assets. Everything. She was family. She deserved it, even if we were estranged. But I never updated that will. And by the time I died, there was nothing left to leave. The company was bankrupt. The building was seized. My personal assets were gone, used to pay creditors. Catherine got nothing because there was nothing to give. What she doesn't know, what no one knows, is that I planned for this possibility. In 1995, when business was still good, I began moving assets. Not to hide them from creditors, that would be fraud, but to preserve them in case the company failed. I created a separate entity, a trust, completely legal and properly documented. I transferred certain valuable assets into that trust. Company patents, prototype equipment, collections of rare materials. The trust was set up to pass to Catherine upon my death. But the lawyers I hired to manage it were with a firm that dissolved in 2008. The paperwork was scattered. The trust fell through the cracks. Catherine never knew about it, because I never told her. I thought we'd reconcile before I died. I thought I'd have time to explain. I didn't. Sophia's heart was pounding. She turned the page, almost afraid of what she'd find. If you're reading this, you've probably bought this building at auction. You paid almost nothing for it, because it's worthless as a structure. What you don't know is that in the basement, behind a false wall in the old boiler room, there's a climate-controlled storage vault. I built it in 1996. Stored everything valuable there. Everything I was preserving for Catherine. The trust documents are in this portfolio. You'll see that ownership should have passed to Catherine Whitmore. That was her married name, upon my death. But since the trust was never activated, since no one claimed it, the assets technically belong to whoever owns the property. That's the legal gray area I'm leaving for you to navigate. I'm writing this letter because I hope whoever finds it is a good person. Someone who needs a break, who's struggling, who could use what's hidden here. But I also hope you'll do right by Catherine. She should know her uncle thought of her. She should know I forgave her. She should know I tried. The vault access code is April 15th, 52. My birthday, April 15th, 1952. The date I started this company. The date I poured the foundation for this building. The date that meant everything. If the assets are still there, they're worth something. Maybe a lot. Maybe enough to change your life. Use them wisely. Be better than I was. Build a family, not just a business. Choose people over pride. And if you can, tell Catherine I'm sorry. Tell her I loved her. Tell her I never stopped hoping we'd reconcile. The letter was signed. Victor Apex, December 30th, 2015. Sophia stared at the words until they blurred. Her mind raced through implications, possibilities, questions. Was this real? Could there actually be something hidden in the basement? And who was Catherine Whitmore? She looked at the date of the letter. December 2015. Victor had died in early 2016, according to public records she'd found online. This letter had been written just weeks before his death. A final attempt to right wrongs, to preserve something for family, to pass on what he'd built. But if no one had found this letter in 8 years, if the trust had never been claimed, then what Victor had hidden was still there, waiting, forgotten. Sophia carefully gathered the portfolio, the letter, the trust documents. Her hand shook. This changed everything. If there was even a chance Victor's vault existed, if there was anything valuable inside, she had to buy this property. She had to find out. She looked around the destroyed office, at the photos of Victor Apex with his workers, at the remains of his life's work. A man who'd built something remarkable and watched it crumble. A man who'd chosen business over family and regretted it. A man who tried at the very end to make things right. Sophia felt a strange kinship with him. They'd both sacrificed everything for what they thought mattered. They'd both lost what they'd fought to keep. They'd both learned too late what was truly important. But Victor had left her a gift. A clue. A possibility. Now she just had to be brave enough to take it. Sophia drove back to the apartment with the portfolio hidden under her coat. She couldn't stop thinking about Victor's letter, about the vault in the basement, about Catherine Whitmore, who'd never known her uncle had tried to make amends. When she got home, Maya was at the kitchen table doing homework. "How was the interview?" "Different than I expected," Sophia said truthfully. "I'll know more in a few days." That night, after Maya went to bed, Sophia read through the trust documents. They were dense, full of legal language she barely understood. But the core was clear. Victor Apex had established the Apex Preservation Trust in August 1995. He transferred ownership of several categories of assets. Company patents registered between 1952 and 1995, prototype optical equipment and instruments, a collection of rare earth elements used in lens manufacturing, research materials, and technical archives. The estimated value of the trust, as of 1995, was listed as $12.4 million. Sophia's hands went numb. $12 million. In 1995, who knew what was worth now? Patents could appreciate or become obsolete. Equipment could be worthless or priceless. Materials could have degraded or increased in value. But even if only a fraction of that value remained, even if 90% had been lost to time and neglect, what was left could change everything. Could send Maya to college. Could give them security. Could transform their lives. She researched Catherine Whitmore. Found her easily. She was 54 years old, living in Portland, Oregon. A civil engineer, just as Victor had mentioned. Married to someone named Robert Whitmore. They had one child, a son in his mid-20s. Catherine's LinkedIn profile showed she worked for a large engineering firm. She looked successful, stable. Her life seemed fine. She probably had no idea her uncle had tried to leave her a fortune. She probably moved on from whatever falling out they'd had. She probably never thought about Victor Apex, or the bankrupt company, or the condemned building in Rochester. Sophia stared at Catherine's photo on the screen. This was the person Victor had wanted to help. This was the family he'd chosen over reconciliation. Part of Sophia felt guilty for even considering claiming what Victor had hidden. It should go to Catherine. That was Victor's clear intention. But legally, if Sophia bought the property, wouldn't the contents belong to her? The trust documents were confusing on this point. They specified that upon Victor's death, ownership would pass to Catherine Whitmore. But they also stated that if the trust was unclaimed within 5 years of his death, the assets would revert to the property owner. Victor had died in March 2016. It was now January 2024. Nearly 8 years. The 5-year window had passed. No one had claimed the trust. No one had known about it, which meant, legally, the assets belonged to whoever owned the property. Sophia felt sick with the moral complexity of it. Taking what Victor had meant for Catherine felt wrong. But Catherine had never known about it, had never claimed it, didn't need it. Meanwhile, Sophia was 3 weeks behind on rent with a daughter who'd earned a full scholarship, but couldn't use it because of $18,000 they didn't have. She thought about Victor's letter. "I hope whoever finds is a good person. Someone who needs a break, who's struggling, who could use what's hidden here." That was her. She was struggling. She needed a break. She could use what was hidden there. Victor had written that letter knowing it might never reach Catherine, knowing a stranger might find it. He left instructions anyway. Left the code. Left the trust documents. Almost as if he'd made peace with either outcome. But he'd also asked one thing. Tell Catherine I'm sorry. Tell her I loved her. Tell her I never stopped hoping we'd reconcile. Sophia made a decision. If she bought the property, if she found the vault, if there was anything valuable inside, she would find a way to honor Victor's wishes. She'd contact Catherine. She'd tell her about her uncle. She'd make sure Catherine knew Victor had thought of her at the end. But first, she had to win the auction. The auction was held online on January 18th at 10 a.m. Sophia sat at her laptop with Maya in school, her heart pounding so hard she felt dizzy. She'd managed to scrape together $520. Her checking account was now overdrawn. Her credit cards were maxed. If she spent this money on the factory and there was nothing in the vault, they'd be homeless by the end of the month. But if there was something, if Victor's vault existed and contained even a fraction of what he described, everything would change. The auction started at 9:45 a.m. with a property Sophia wasn't interested in. She watched bidders compete, the price climbing quickly. Some people knew what they were doing. They had resources, strategies, confidence. At 10:17 a.m., the Apex Precision Lens facility came up. The auctioneer's description was brutal. Condemned structure, fire damage, environmental concerns, buyer responsible for all remediation. Minimum bid, $500. Sophia placed her bid. $500. No one else bid. The seconds ticked by. 30 seconds. 60 seconds. The interface showed one bidder, one bid. She couldn't believe it. No one wanted this property. No one saw anything worth buying in a destroyed factory. They saw liability, cost problems. They didn't know about Victor's letter, about the vault, about the possibility hidden in the basement. At 90 seconds, the auction closed. Sold to Sophia Chen for $500. She sat back, trembling. She'd done it. She'd bought a condemned factory. She owned 14,782 square feet of destroyed building and whatever secrets it held. Now she just had to find out if those secrets were real. The paperwork took 3 days to process. Sophia received a deed by email, making her the legal owner of the property at 1847 Genesee Street. She also received a thick packet of disclosures, warnings, and liability waivers. The city wanted to make very clear they took no responsibility for whatever happened to her in that building. She waited until Saturday to tell Maya. They were eating breakfast, cereal with the last of the milk, when Sophia said, "I need to tell you something. I bought a building." Maya looked up from her bowl. "What?" "A factory. It used to make lenses. It's been abandoned for years, damaged by fire. I bought it at auction for $500. Maya stared at her. "Why?" "Because it might be worth something. The land, the materials, something we could sell. It's a gamble, but we needed something to change." "Mom, you spent $500 we don't have on a burned building?" "I know how it sounds. It sounds crazy. It sounds desperate." "It is desperate," Sophia admitted. "But I found something that makes me think there might be more to this property than it seems. I need to check it out. I need you to trust me." Maya's expression was complicated. Worry, frustration, hope, fear, all mixed together. "What did you find?" Sophia showed her Victor's letter. Maya read it slowly, her eyes widening. When she finished, she looked up. "This says there's a vault with millions of dollars of stuff. It says there might be. Written by a man who died 8 years ago. It could be gone. Could have been found and emptied. Could have never existed. But you think it's real. I think it's worth checking. We got nothing to lose at this point." Maya bit her lip. "Okay, when do we go?" "You're not coming. That building is dangerous." "Mom, I'm not letting you go alone into a condemned factory. If you're doing this, I'm helping." Sophia wanted to argue, wanted to protect her daughter from danger and disappointment. But Maya had that look she got when she'd made up her mind. The same look she'd had when she'd decided to take 5 AP classes junior year, when everyone said it was too much. The same look she'd had when she'd chosen Vermont over cheaper schools closer to home. Determined, stubborn, unshakable. "Fine," Sophia said, "but we're being careful. Any sign of danger, we leave immediately." They went that afternoon, bringing flashlights, work gloves, face masks to protect against mold and dust. Sophia had borrowed a crowbar and bolt cutters from their neighbor in exchange for watching his dog next weekend. She felt like they were preparing for a heist, not exploring a building she legally owned. The factory looked even more forbidding in daylight. Maya stopped at the fence, staring. "You bought this?" "Seemed like a better idea before I saw it in person," Sophia admitted. They made their way to the loading dock and ducked inside. Maya gasped at the destruction. "Oh my God, this place is totally destroyed. The basement might be better." The fire was mostly on the first floor. They found a stairwell at the back of the building. The metal stairs descended into darkness. Sophia shined her flashlight down. The beam didn't reach the bottom. "You sure about this?" Maya asked. "No, but we're here now." They descended carefully, testing each step. The air grew colder as they went down and damper. At the bottom, they found themselves in a large basement, ceiling low, pipes running overhead. The space was divided into sections. Old storage areas, mechanical rooms, what looked like a maintenance workshop. Where would a boiler room be? Maya asked. They searched, moving through the basement section by section. Most of it was empty or filled with abandoned equipment. But in the far corner, behind a tangle of pipes, they found it. A room with a heavy door, partially open. Inside, a massive old boiler, long defunct, surrounded by dust and cobwebs. Sophia consulted Victor's letter. He said behind a false wall. They examined the walls carefully, tapping, pushing, looking for anything unusual. The room was maybe 15 feet square. Brick walls on 3 sides, the 4th wall concrete. Nothing obvious. Maya ran her hands along the concrete wall. This feels different. This section. She pressed harder. Mom, I think this moves. Sophia joined her. Together, they pushed against the wall. At first, nothing. Then a grinding sound, and the wall shifted inward an inch. It's a door, Sophia breathed. A hidden door. They pushed harder. The door, cleverly disguised as part of the wall, swung open on hidden hinges. Behind it was darkness. Sophia shined her flashlight inside. A small room, maybe 8 feet by 10 feet, climate-controlled equipment hummed on one wall, somehow still powered. The room was sealed, protected, and on the far wall was a vault door. Industrial grade, with a digital keypad. Maya grabbed Sophia's arm. It's real. Oh my God, it's actually real. Sophia approached the vault on shaking legs. The keypad glowed a soft red. A screen above it read, Enter access code. She pulled out her phone, checked Victor's letter. April 15th, 52. Her fingers trembled as she entered the numbers. 0-4-1-5-5-2. The keypad beeped. The screen changed. Access granted. Heavy locks disengaged inside the door. Bolts sliding back with mechanical precision. The sound echoed in the small room like thunder. Maya squeezed Sophia's hand so hard it hurt. Mom, what's in there? Sophia grabbed the vault handle. It turned smoothly. The door, despite its obvious weight, swung open easily. Inside was darkness. Sophia shined her flashlight through the opening. What she saw made her knees buckle. The vault wasn't empty. It was full. Sophia's flashlight beam cut through the darkness of Victor Apex's vault, revealing rows of metal shelving units that lined both walls. Each shelf was packed with equipment, boxes, and storage containers, all meticulously organized and labeled. The air inside was cool and dry, perfectly climate-controlled after nearly 8 years of automated preservation. Mom, Maya whispered, as if speaking too loudly might make it all disappear. What is all this? Sophia stepped inside, her heart hammering. The vault was larger than it had appeared from outside, maybe 12 feet deep and 8 feet wide. The shelving units were industrial grade, designed to hold significant weight. Each shelf had white labels with Victor's precise handwriting. Dates, descriptions, inventory numbers. She approached the first shelf on the left. The label read, Rare Earth Elements, Optical Grade, 1987 to 1995. Beneath it sat rows of sealed containers, each one marked with chemical symbols and purity ratings. Sophia recognized some of them from her years in optical manufacturing. Lanthanum oxide, used in high-quality camera lenses. Yttrium, essential for certain specialized applications. Compounds she'd worked with in tiny amounts, measured in milligrams. Here, there were kilograms. Sealed in vacuum containers, protected from oxidation and contamination. She pulled out her phone and searched current market prices. Her hand started shaking as the numbers appeared on screen. Maya, these rare earth elements, they're worth. She did quick calculations. At least $30,000. Maybe more. That's just one shelf, Maya said, moving to the opposite wall. Mom, look at this. The right-hand shelves held something entirely different. Large wooden cases, custom-built, with brass latches and Victor's company logo burned into the wood. Maya opened one carefully. Inside, nestled in foam padding, was a lens. Not just any lens, but a masterpiece of optical engineering. The glass was flawless, the coatings pristine. A brass plate on the foam read, Apex Precision Telephoto Array, prototype for NASA Hubble Backup System, 1989. Oh my God, Sophia breathed. This was for the Hubble telescope. They opened another case. Another prototype, this one labeled Medical Endoscopy Lens System, Johns Hopkins Research, 1993. And another, Military Night Vision Objective Assembly, Classified Project, 1991. Case after case, each one containing optical instruments that represented the cutting edge of technology from their era. Victor hadn't just manufactured lenses. He'd been an innovator, creating custom solutions for the most demanding applications. And he'd kept the prototypes, the one-of-a-kind pieces that represented his finest work. Sophia's mind raced through implications. These weren't just valuable as materials. They were historical artifacts, scientific instruments that had contributed to space exploration, medical advancement, military technology. Museums would want these. Collectors, research institutions. The back wall of the vault held filing cabinets. Sophia opened the first drawer. Inside were patent documents, hundreds of them, each one carefully preserved in plastic sleeves. She pulled one out at random. Patent hashtag for 273-109. High-resolution optical lens assembly with corrective coating. File 1978, granted 1981. Victor Apex Inventor. She checked another. Patent hashtag 5-847-762. Precision lens manufacturing process for submicron accuracy. Filed 1996, granted 1998. Maya, do you know what patents are worth? Depend if anyone's still using them, right? Right. But some of these, Sophia scanned through more documents. Some of these cover fundamental processes in optical manufacturing. The patents may have expired, but the techniques, the documentation, the research behind them, that has value to anyone in the industry. The second filing cabinet drawer held something different. Stock certificates. Sophia pulled one out, confused at first. Certificate for 10,000 shares of Applied Materials Incorporated, issued 1985. Another certificate, 5,000 shares of Corning Incorporated, issued 1988. More certificates for Zeiss, Nikon, Canon, companies that manufactured optical equipment and components. He bought stock in his competitors. Maya asked, or his suppliers, or related companies. Sophia checked her phone, looking up the current value of these holdings. If the shares were still valid, if they hadn't been split or dissolved or invalidated, she couldn't even calculate it. Some of these companies had grown exponentially since the 1980s. At the bottom of the third filing cabinet was a leather portfolio identical to the one Sophia had found upstairs. She opened it carefully. Inside was a letter, dated March 3rd, 2016, just days before Victor died. Second letter. In case the first one wasn't clear enough. I'm dying. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. Doctors give me 2 weeks, maybe 3. I'm in hospice now, writing this with hands that shake so badly I can barely hold the pen. I wanted to add something to my first letter, something I didn't have the courage to say before. I wasted my life. Not the business part that I did right, but the life part. I had chances to marry, to have children, to build something beyond this company. I said no every time because I was too busy, too focused, too convinced that my work was more important than relationships. My sister Rose tried to tell me. She said I'd regret it. She said money and success wouldn't keep me warm at night. I didn't listen. When she died, I lost the only person who truly cared about me, not my company. Her daughter Catherine was all I had left, and I pushed her away over something so stupid I can barely remember what started the fight. I tried to reach out, wrote letters she never answered, called numbers that were disconnected. By the time I got sick, it was too late. She'd moved on with her life, and I was just a bitter old man who'd chosen his business over his family. The trust one created was my way of saying I'm sorry, of giving her what she deserved. But the lawyers I hired to manage it disappeared when their firm collapsed in 2008. The trust fell through the cracks. Catherine never knew about it because I never told her, and now I'm dying without the chance to make things right. If you find this, if you find the vault, please understand something. What's in there represents 50 years of my life. But it's not a life. It's just things. Beautiful things, valuable things, important things, but still just things. I trade all of it for one more day with Rose. One more chance to apologize to Catherine. One more opportunity to do what actually matters. Love people while you can. Use what's here wisely. Build something real with it. Not just wealth, but relationships. Family. Connection. The things I missed while I was too busy being successful. And if you can find Catherine, tell her I died thinking about her. Tell her I was proud of her for becoming an engineer, for having a family, for doing what I couldn't do, balance work and life. Tell her the falling out was my fault. Tell her I loved her even when I was too stubborn to say it. Victor Apex, March 3rd, 2016. P.S. The complete inventory and estimated values are in the blue binder on the top shelf. I updated everything in 2015. The total was roughly $47 million then. Could be more now, could be less. I honestly don't care anymore. Just use it well. Sophia read the letter twice, tears blurring her vision. $47 million. Victor had written that number so casually, like it didn't represent a fortune that could change lives, could send 100 kids to college, could transform everything. She looked around the vault with new understanding. This wasn't just valuable equipment and materials. This was a man's entire life, compressed and preserved. Every patent represented years of research. Every prototype represented months of testing. Every share certificate represented a decision made decades ago, a bet on the future that had paid off beyond imagination. And Victor had died alone, filled with regret, wanting nothing more than to reconcile with his niece. "Mom!" Maya's voice pulled her back. "You okay?" Sophia wiped her eyes. "Yeah, just reading Victor's last letter. He was so sad at the end. Should we contact that woman? Catherine." "We will. But first, we need to understand what we actually have here. We need to verify it's real, that it's valuable, that we can actually claim it." They spent the next 3 hours documenting everything in a vault. Sophia took photographs of every shelf, every container, every patent document, every prototype. Maya created a spreadsheet on her phone, cataloging items as they found them. The blue binder Victor mentioned contained a complete inventory, typed and organized with the same precision that had characterized his entire life. The scope was staggering. Beyond what they'd already found, there were drawers of precision measuring instruments, some of them so specialized Sophia didn't recognize them. There were reels of optical fiber, early prototypes from when the technology was brand new. There were lenses made from materials that were now restricted or unavailable, making them irreplaceable for certain applications. And there were the patents. Not just the ones Victor had invented, but ones he'd purchased from other inventors, acquiring rights to processes and designs that complemented his own work. The patent portfolio alone represented thousands of hours of research and development. When they finally emerged from the vault, the sun was setting. They'd been in the basement for nearly 4 hours. Sophia locked the vault carefully, memorizing the code, sealing the hidden door behind them. As they climbed the stairs back to the first floor, Maya asked the question Sophia had been dreading. "What do we do now? We need to verify everything. Get expert opinions. Understand what we legally own. Do we tell anyone?" Sophia thought about that. Their landlord who was 3 weeks from evicting them. The unemployment office tracking her job search. The credit card companies calling twice a day. Her family, scattered and distant, who thought she'd made nothing but mistakes since getting pregnant at 21. "Not yet," she said. "Not until we know what this really means." But keeping secrets in a small apartment with bill collectors circling was harder than Sophia anticipated. That night, their landlord, Mr. Kowalski, knocked on their door at 8:30 p.m. He was a heavy man in his 60s, not unkind, but not sentimental either. "Miss Chen, we need to talk about the rent." Sophia had known this was coming. "I have a payment plan proposal. You're 3 weeks late. That's $950 plus late fees. I've been patient, but I got other applicants for this unit who can pay on time." "I understand. I just need 2 more weeks. I'm selling something, a property, and once that goes through..." Mr. Kowalski's expression was skeptical. "You bought property? While owing me rent?" "It was an investment. A way to..." "Miss Chun, I've heard every story. I like you and your daughter. I really do. But if I don't have rent by February 1st, That's 12 days from now. I'm filing eviction papers. I'm sorry, but that's business. He left. Sophia closed the door and leaned against it, the weight of everything pressing down. She had 12 days to turn Victor's vault into cash. 12 days to save their home. 12 days to make this impossible gamble pay off. Maya emerged from the bathroom, having clearly heard everything. We need to move faster. We need to be smart. If we rush this, if we try to sell things without proper authentication, we'll get pennies on the dollar. Or worse, we'll get scammed. Then who do we trust? Good question. Sophia spent that night researching. She needed experts who could authenticate and appraise what Victor had left behind. But experts were expensive, and she had no money. She needed people she could trust not to steal from her. In a city where she knew almost no one, where her former co-workers had scattered after Benton Optical closed, where her family was distant or estranged, trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. She started with patents. The documents in Victor's vault were originals, but the patents themselves were registered with the U.S. Patent Office. She could verify them online for free. She spent hours cross-referencing patent numbers, checking filing dates, confirming Victor's name as inventor. Every single patent checked out. Everyone was real. Next, she researched the stock certificates. This was trickier. Old paper certificates weren't always honored by modern companies. Some had been replaced by electronic systems. Some companies had merged or dissolved. But one by one, Sophia verified that most of the shares were legitimate and could be converted to current holdings. The math made her dizzy. Victor had bought 10,000 shares of Applied Materials in 1985 for roughly $15,000. Those shares had split multiple times over the decades. Adjusted for splits, he'd owned what was now 80,000 shares. At current market price of $163 per share, that single certificate was worth over $13 million. And there were dozens of certificates: Corning, Canon, Nikon, Zeiss, Shot Glass, Hoya Corporation. Every major player in the optical industry. Victor had invested in all of them. Some had performed better than others, but collectively, the stock portfolio was worth somewhere between $30 and $40 million just as raw shareholdings. Sophia sat back from her laptop, stunned. She'd been thinking in terms of hundreds of thousands, maybe low millions if they were lucky. But Victor's number, $47 million in 2015, was looking conservative. With stock market appreciation over the past 8 years, the total value could be significantly higher. But there was a catch. Actually converting those old paper certificates to usable shares require process. She'd need to contact transfer agents, prove ownership of the original certificates, fill out forms, pay fees. It could take weeks or months, and she had 12 days before eviction. The rare earth elements were more immediately liquidable. Sophia contacted industrial chemical suppliers, posing as someone with materials to sell. She described what she had in vague terms, trying to gauge interest without revealing too much. The responses were promising. One supplier in Buffalo said they'd pay market rate for optical-grade rare earth compounds, cash on delivery, if purity tests checked out. She calculated. The rare earth materials alone were worth roughly $80,000 at current prices. Not a fortune, but enough to pay rent for a year. Enough to cover Maya's first-year college costs. Enough to breathe. On Monday, January 22nd, Sophia rented a van and drove to the factory with Maya. They loaded 5 containers of rare earth elements into the van, carefully chosen because they were the most liquid, the easiest to sell, the most straightforward to prove purity on. The drive to Buffalo took 90 minutes. The industrial supplier was a warehouse in a rough neighborhood. Sophia had her doubts, but the man who met them, Frank Delgado, was professional and knowledgeable. You said you had optical-grade lanthanides? Yes. 5 containers, vacuum-sealed, stored in climate control since the mid-90s. Frank examined the containers, checked the labels, ran quick tests with equipment Sophia didn't recognize. After 30 minutes, he nodded. Purity's excellent. Better than most of what we see. Where'd you get this? Purchased from an estate. The owner ran an optical manufacturing company. Victor Apex? Sophia's heart skipped. You knew him? knew of him. Apex Precision Lens was legendary in the industry. Best quality control in the business. If Victor stored these materials, you can trust they're exactly what the labels say. Frank did some calculations. I can offer you $42,000 for all 5 containers. Sophia's research suggested they were worth closer to $55,000. That's low. It's cash today, no questions asked. You want to shop around? Find someone who'll pay more. That's your right. But it'll take time, and you'll need to provide provenance documentation. Time was what Sophia didn't have. $45,000. Frank considered. 43, and I'll provide a receipt that doesn't mention where the materials came from. Sometimes discretion is worth the premium. They settled on $43,500. Frank counted out cash in $100 bills, made Sophia sign a simple receipt, and helped them load the empty containers back in the van. The whole transaction took under 2 hours. Driving back to Rochester with $43,500 in her coat pocket, Sophia felt surreal. She just made more money in one afternoon than she earned in an entire year at Ben Optical, and it represented less than 0.1% of what Victor's vault contained. Are we rich now? Maya asked from the passenger seat. We're not homeless, Sophia said. That's what we are right now. Not homeless. She paid Mr. Kowalski in cash that evening. 3 months rent plus late fees. $3,200 total. His eyebrows rose when she counted out $100 bills. Property sale went through? He asked. Something like that. Well, I appreciate the payment. You're good through April. Sophia paid the electric bill, the overdue cell phone bill, bought groceries for the first time in 2 weeks. She opened a savings account and deposited $35,000, holding back $5,000 for immediate expenses and emergencies. For the first time in months, she could breathe without panic crushing her chest. But the relief was temporary. She still needed to authenticate and liquidate the bigger assets. The prototypes, the patents, the stock certificates. And she needed to do it carefully, legally, in a way that wouldn't trigger questions she couldn't answer or attract people who might try to take what she'd found. She needed help. Real help from someone who understood the industry, the law, the complexities of intellectual property, and historical artifacts. On Wednesday, Sophia received an unexpected phone call. The number was unfamiliar. Area code 503. Portland, Oregon. Hello. Is this Sophia Chen? A woman's voice, professional but uncertain. Yes. My name is Catherine Whitmore. You may not know who I am, but I think you recently purchased a property that belonged to my uncle, Victor Apex. Sophia's breath caught. How did you know? Property records are public. I had an alert set up years ago, in case the building ever changed hands. I got a notification last week. When I saw you paid $500 for it, I assumed you were buying it for demolition or salvage. But then yesterday, I got a call from Frank Delgado in Buffalo. He mentioned selling rare earth materials to a woman who said she got them from Victor's estate. He described you, mentioned you had a teenage daughter. I put it together. Sophia's mind raced. Frank had promised discretion, but had apparently talked anyway. Mrs. Whitmore, I can explain. Did you find something in the building? Something my uncle left. The question hung between them. Sophia could lie, could claim there was nothing, could protect what she'd found. Or she could honor Victor's wishes, tell Catherine the truth, hope that decency was rewarded rather than punished. Yes, Sophia said quietly. I found a vault with a letter your uncle wrote before he died. He wanted you to have everything in it. He was trying to make amends for whatever happened between you. Silence on the other end. Then Catherine's voice, thick with emotion. What did the letter say? Sophia read both of Victor's letters to her, word for word. When she finished, Catherine was crying openly. He tried to reach me, Catherine said. After Dad died, I was so angry. Victor had promised to help with medical bills, then said he couldn't because the business was failing. We fought. I said terrible things. I told him I never wanted to hear from him again. He forgave you. That's clear in the letters. I didn't forgive him. I never called back, never answered his letters. I let him die thinking I hated him. Catherine's voice broke. I didn't hate him. I was just hurt and stupid and stubborn. He knew that, Sophia said gently. He blamed himself, not you. Catherine took a shaky breath. What's in a vault? Sophia described everything. The rare earth elements, the prototypes, the patents, the stock certificates. She read from Victor's inventory, the estimated $47 million value from 2015. My God, Catherine whispered. He left me a fortune. Legally, it's complicated, Sophia said. The trust documents specify that ownership passes to you upon his death. But there's a clause about unclaimed assets after 5 years. Since the trust was never activated, since you never knew about it, the assets technically belong to whoever owns the property. That's me now. So you're saying it's yours. I'm saying I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. But Mrs. Whitmore, Catherine, I didn't buy that building knowing about the vault. I found Victor's letter by accident, and he was very clear about wanting you to have what he'd preserved. I want to honor that. You could keep it all. The law's probably on your side. I could, but that's not what Victor wanted, and it's not what I want either. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. Why are you being honest with me? Most people wouldn't. Sophia thought about that. Because Victor's letters reminded me of what matters. He spent his whole life building wealth and lost what was actually important. Family, relationships, connection. I have a daughter about to start college. I've been so focused on survival that I almost forgot why I'm surviving. It's not for money. It's for her. For us. For the kind of life where we don't have to choose between being honest and being okay. You're struggling financially. We were about to be evicted. I sold some of the rare earth elements to pay rent and bills. I hope that's okay. I needed to. Of course it's okay, Catherine interrupted. You found it. You needed help. You took what you needed. That's exactly what my uncle would have wanted. She paused. But we should figure this out properly. The legal ownership, the value, how to liquidate assets fairly. I'm a civil engineer, not a lawyer, but I know people who can help. Can you hold off on selling anything else until we get proper representation? I can try, but I need some cash flow for immediate expenses. I'll send you money, Catherine said immediately. $10,000 to hold you over while we sort this out. Give me your banking information. Catherine, you don't have to. Yes, I do. My uncle wanted to help you. You found his gift. You're being honest when you could have hidden everything. The least I can do is make sure you're stable while we figure out the right thing to do. Sophia gave her the account information. They agreed to talk again in 2 days after Catherine had time to consult with an attorney. When Sophia hung up, Maya was standing in the doorway. You told her everything? I did. What if she tries to take it all? Then she tries. But I don't think she will. She sounded like a good person who's been carrying guilt for 8 years. I think she'll do right by us. And if she doesn't, Sophia smiled tiredly. Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But for once, Maya, I'd like to try trusting someone. I'm tired of assuming everyone's going to screw us over. The money from Catherine arrived the next morning. $10,000, wired directly to Sophia's account. With it came an email. Sophia, thank you for your honesty. I've been carrying guilt about my uncle for years. Knowing he forgave me, knowing he tried to make things right, it means more than I can express. I've consulted with an attorney here in Portland who specializes in estate and property law. She says the situation is complex, but likely solvable. The trust documents are clear about Victor's intent. The 5-year clause exists, but courts can make exceptions when intent is documented and one party was unaware of their inheritance. Her suggestion, we work together. You legitimately own the property and everything in it. But Victor clearly wanted me to benefit from what he'd preserved. So we should split everything, 50/50ths. You found it. I was supposed to inherit it. We both deserve it. I know you're struggling financially. So here's what I propose. We authenticate everything properly, liquidate strategically, and split the proceeds equally. Given the estimated value, even half should be enough to change your life completely. Does that sound fair? Catherine. Sophia read the email 3 times. 50/50. Catherine was offering to split a fortune she could probably claim entirely through legal channels if she fought hard enough. But she wasn't fighting. She was offering partnership, fairness, the kind of decency that Sophia had almost stopped believing existed. She typed a response. Catherine, that's more than fair. It's generous. Thank you for trusting me. And thank you for being the kind of person your uncle hoped you'd be. Let's do this right. Let's authenticate everything, understand the real value, and make sure we both benefit from Victor's gift. And let's make sure his story is told, so people remember him for what he tried to do at the end, not just what he regretted. Sophia. Over the next 2 weeks, Sophia and Catherine worked together long distance to begin the authentication process. Catherine connected Sophia with experts in Portland and Rochester who could evaluate the vault's contents professionally. The first was Dr. Raymond Park, a retired optical engineer who'd worked in the industry for 40 years. He drove from Syracuse to examine the prototypes. When Sophia opened the vault for him, his reaction was immediate and visceral. "My God," he breathed, approaching the wooden cases. "These are Apex originals. I'd heard rumors Victor kept prototypes, but I never thought." He opened the first case reverently. "This is the NASA backup array. I saw specifications for this in a journal article in 1990. Never saw the actual piece." He spent 6 hours examining the prototypes, taking measurements, photographing details. When he finally emerged, his expression was awed. "Miss Chen, what you have here is a museum-quality collection of late 20th century optical engineering. Some of these pieces represent breakthrough technology. The medical endoscopy system alone changed how surgeries were performed. The military night vision components became the foundation for modern battlefield equipment. What are they worth? As functional equipment? Hard to say. As historical artifacts? Priceless. Museums would fight over these. I'd estimate the collection at somewhere between $3 and $5 million at auction, possibly more if you find the right buyers." The patent portfolio required different expertise. Catherine hired an intellectual property attorney who specialized in valuing patent estates. He examined Victor's documents for 3 days, researching which patents were still relevant, which had expired, which covered processes still in use. His report was detailed and complex, but the summary was clear. The patent portfolio had significant value, not as active patents, most had expired, but as documentation of technological development. Companies doing historical research, universities teaching engineering history, even current manufacturers who wanted to understand the evolution of certain processes, all would pay for access to Victor's comprehensive patent collection. Estimated value: $2.8 million if sold as a complete archive. The stock certificates required the most work. Sophia and Catherine hired a securities attorney to navigate the process of converting old paper certificates to modern electronic shares. Each company had different requirements. Some needed notarized affidavits. Others required court orders. A few had merged or been acquired, making the conversion process even more complex. But one by one, the certificates were validated. And as they were, the true scope of Victor's investing acumen became clear. He bought shares in optical companies during the 1980s and 90s when the industry was exploding. He'd held through downturns and market crashes. And the companies he'd chosen had, for the most part, thrived. Applied Materials, $13.2 million Corning, $8.70 million Canon, $4.3 million Nikon, $3.8 million Zeiss, $2.9 million others, $6.4 million. Total stock portfolio, $39.3 million. Add the rare earth elements, $55,000 remaining after Sophia's sale, the prototypes for $1 million estimated, the patents, $2.8 million, and Victor's conservative estimate of $47 million in 2015 was actually $46.2 million in 2024. But there was one more component Sophia hadn't fully explored. The blue binder mentioned something Victor had called his special collection. She found it on the last day of February, in a sealed compartment at the bottom of the vault she'd missed during initial exploration. Inside were smaller boxes, each one containing lenses that weren't prototypes for clients. They were Victor's personal experiments. Art pieces, really. Lenses ground and polished to impossible specifications just to see if it could be done. Some were purely aesthetic, creating optical effects that served no practical purpose but were stunningly beautiful. Others pushed the boundaries of what was physically possible with glass and light. Dr. Park examined them and declared them masterworks. Victor was an artist, he said. These lenses do things I've never seen. The way they bend light, the colors they create, the precision of the grinding. This is a lifetime of expertise distilled into individual pieces. Collectors would pay enormous amounts for these. One lens in particular caught his attention. A small piece, maybe 2 inches in diameter, that created a rainbow effect when light passed through it at certain angles. Victor's label read, "Perfect spectrum lens, 2,847 hours of grinding, my masterpiece." "This is extraordinary," Dr. Park said softly. "I've never seen light diffraction patterns like this. It's not just technically perfect. It's beautiful in a way that transcends function. This single lens could sell for $200,000 or more to the right collector." There were 37 pieces in the special collection. Dr. Park estimated the total value at somewhere between $3.50 and $6 million, depending on how they were marketed. New total, $52.7 million, conservatively. Potentially as high as $58 million if everything sold at the top end of estimates. Sophia sat in the vault, surrounded by Victor Apex's life work, and tried to process what it meant. $50 million. Half of that was hers. $25 million. More money than she'd earn in 500 years at her old job. More money than she'd ever imagined having. Enough to send Maya to college and graduate school. Enough to never worry about rent again. Enough to change everything. But before she could feel relief or joy or anything other than overwhelmed confusion, her phone rang. The screen showed a Rochester number she didn't recognize. "Miss Chen? This is Detective Raymond Torres with the Rochester Police Department. We need to talk about the property you purchased on Genesee Street. There's been an incident." Sophia's stomach dropped. "What kind of incident?" "Break-in. Someone forced entry to the building last night. We found evidence of extensive searching, like they were looking for something specific. The business owner next door heard the noise and called it in. Units responded, but the perpetrators were gone by the time we arrived. Was anything taken? Hard to say, given the state of the building. But Miss Chun, we found equipment at the scene. Cutting tools, prying equipment, the kind of gear you'd use for serious forced entry. This wasn't random vandals. Someone knew that building had something worth stealing." Sophia closed her eyes. "I'll be right there." She drove to the factory with her heart pounding. 3 police cars were parked outside, their lights off but presence still intimidating. Detective Torres met her at the gate, a man in his early 50s with tired eyes and a notepad. "Miss Chun, thanks for coming. Can you tell me what's stored in this building?" "It's mostly empty. I bought it at auction. For $500. That's what the deed shows." "Yes. And you haven't stored anything valuable here? Nothing someone might want to steal?" Sophia wanted to tell the truth, but instinct held her back. "Detective, the building was condemned. I bought it thinking I could salvage materials or sell the land. There's nothing valuable that I'm aware of." Torres studied her face. "Then why did someone with professional burglary equipment spend several hours trying to access the basement?" Her blood went cold. "The basement? Yeah, they didn't waste time on the first floor. Went straight down, like they knew exactly where they were going. The door to some kind of storage room was tampered with. Looked like they were trying to cut through a wall, but couldn't finish before my units arrived. The vault. Someone had been trying to get into the vault. Do you know who it was?" "Not yet. We're reviewing security camera footage from nearby businesses. But Miss Chun, I need you to be straight with me. Is there something in that building someone might want badly enough to commit a felony to get?" Sophia made a split-second decision. "I need to speak with my attorney before answering questions." Torres's expression shifted. "That's your right. But if you're hiding something, if there's stolen property or illegal materials in that building, lying to police is a crime." "I'm not lying. I just don't know what you're asking me, and I don't want to say something that could be misinterpreted. I'll have my attorney contact you." She left before Torres could press further. As she drove away, her hands shook so badly she had to pull over. Someone knew about the vault. Someone had tried to break in. How? How can anyone know? She called Catherine immediately. Explained what had happened. "Oh God," Catherine said. "Someone's been watching you. Following you. They saw you taking things out of the building." Or someone talked. Frank Delgado, Dr. Park, the patent attorney, the securities lawyer. We've told a lot of people, under NDAs. They're legally bound not to. That doesn't mean they didn't tell someone. A spouse, a friend, a business partner. Information leaks, Catherine. And now someone's trying to steal what Victor left. What do? We move everything. Today. Right now. We get the valuables out of that vault and into secure storage before whoever tried to break in comes back. They spent the rest of the day organizing. Catherine flew in from Portland that evening, the first time they'd met in person. She was tall, slender, in her early 50s with gray-streaked dark hair and her uncle's intelligent eyes. They embraced in the airport like old friends, bonded by crisis and Victor's ghost. Together with Maya, they rented a security truck and spent the night moving everything from the vault. The rare earth elements, the prototypes, the patent documents, the stock certificates, the special collection. All of it loaded carefully into the truck and driven to a climate-controlled storage facility with 24-hour security and biometric access. It took 4 trips. They worked until 3 a.m., exhausted and terrified someone would ambush them. But no one came. The building sat dark and empty, its secrets finally removed, nothing left to steal. When the last box was secured in the storage unit, Sophia locked the door and leaned against it, nearly collapsing with relief. "It's safe," Catherine said. "It's all safe now." "For now," Maya added quietly. "But whoever tried to break in, they're still out there. They still know something valuable was in that building. What happens when they figure out you moved it?" It was a question none of them could answer. And as they drove through the dark Rochester streets back to Sophia's apartment, exhaustion finally catching up with them, Sophia realized something terrifying. This wasn't over. Finding Victor's vault hadn't solved their problems. It had created new ones. More dangerous ones. The kind that involved people desperate enough to commit crimes, who knew enough to be a real threat. The discovery that should have changed everything had instead made everything more complicated, more dangerous, more uncertain. And somewhere out there, someone was watching, waiting, planning their next move. The morning after they moved everything from Victor's vault, Sophia woke to sunlight streaming through the apartment window and the smell of coffee brewing. Catherine was in the tiny kitchen area, already dressed, her laptop open on the counter. "You're up early," Sophia said, her body aching from the previous night's physical labor. "Couldn't sleep. I've been researching who might have known about the vault." Catherine turned the laptop screen toward Sophia. "I think I found something." On the screen was a news article from 2015, just months before Victor died. The headline read, "Local optical pioneer Victor Apex hospitalized. Company assets uncertain." Sophia scanned the article. It was mostly about Victor's health decline and the bankruptcy of Apex Precision Lens. But one paragraph made her stomach clench. Sources close to Apex indicate the inventor may have preserved certain valuable assets separate from the bankrupt company. "Victor was meticulous about protecting his life's work," said former business partner Gerald Morrison. "He wouldn't have let everything disappear just because the company failed. He was too smart for that." "Gerald Morrison," Sophia said. "Who is he?" "Victor's business partner in the early 2000s. They had a falling out around 2008. Morrison claimed Victor owed him money from the partnership dissolution. There was a lawsuit, but it was dismissed because the company was already bankrupt. Morrison got nothing. You think he's been looking for Victor's hidden assets all these years? I think when you bought the property and started bringing experts in to evaluate things, word got back to him. He put the pieces together." Maya emerged from the bathroom, hair wet from the shower. "So what do? Call the police and tell them." "And tell them what?" Catherine asked. "That we think Gerald Morrison tried to break into a building to steal assets that we can't technically prove ownership of yet. We need to be smarter than that." Over the next week, they focused on 2 things: securing legal ownership of everything they'd found and identifying who was threatening them. Catherine's attorney in Portland worked with a Rochester firm to file paperwork establishing clear title to the vault's contents. The argument was straightforward. Sophia had purchased the property and everything within it. The trust documents showed Victor's intent to preserve assets for Catherine, but the legal reality was that unclaimed assets belonged to the property owner. Therefore, Sophia and Catherine's agreement to split everything 50-50 was a private arrangement between them, legally sound and properly documented. Meanwhile, Detective Torres continued investigating the break-in. Sophia hired a private security firm to monitor the factory, installing cameras and motion sensors. If Morrison or anyone else came back, they'd have evidence. The break came on March 8th. Security footage showed a man in his 60s approaching the factory at 2 a.m. He spent 20 minutes examining the building, testing doors and windows. When he couldn't find entry, he made a phone call. The camera angle wasn't perfect, but facial recognition software identified him with 87% certainty. Gerald Morrison, 68, currently living in Pittsford, a Rochester suburb. Detective Torres brought him in for questioning. Morrison denied everything at first, claimed he was just an old man taking a walk. But when Torres showed him the security footage, mentioned that burglary tools matching those found at the scene had been purchased from a hardware store near Morrison's home, and threatened charges that could mean prison time at his age, Morrison's story changed. "Victor owed me," Morrison said, his voice bitter. "We were partners. When the company went bankrupt, I lost everything I'd invested. My retirement, my savings, everything." Victor claimed there was nothing left, but I knew him. I knew he wouldn't have let his precious inventions just disappear. He hid them somewhere. "So you broke into the building? I was going to take what was rightfully mine. What Victor should have given me years ago when he dissolved our partnership. The building doesn't belong to you. The contents don't belong to you. They belong to Victor, and Victor owed me." Morrison leaned forward. "Do you know what's in that vault? Millions. Maybe tens of millions. And some woman bought the building for $500 and gets to keep it all? That's not fair. That's not justice. That's the law," Torres said flatly. "You don't get to steal just because you think you deserve something." Morrison was charged with attempted burglary, criminal trespass, and possession of burglary tools. The charges would likely result in probation given his age and lack of criminal record, but it was enough to keep him away from Sophia and the factory. With that threat neutralized, Sophia and Catherine could focus on the methodical work of liquidating Victor's assets. They started with the items easiest to convert to cash, the remaining rare earth elements, and some of the less historically significant prototypes. A materials science company in Boston purchased the rare earth compounds for $57,000. An optical equipment collector in San Francisco bought 3 of the military prototypes for $340,000. Each sale was documented meticulously, taxes set aside, money split evenly between Sophia and Catherine. By mid-March, they converted about $500,000 in assets to cash. Sophia's share, $250,000, was more money than she'd ever imagined having. She paid off every debt she owed: credit cards, medical bills, the small loan she'd taken against her car years ago. Every obligation cleared, every collector silenced. The feeling of freedom was intoxicating. She took Maya shopping for college supplies, not at Walmart or Target, but at real stores where they didn't have to check price tags first. A laptop for schoolwork, a winter coat that wasn't from a donation bin, bedding and towels, and all the small things that made dorm life comfortable. "Mom, this is too much," Maya said as Sophia added another item to the cart. "No, it's not. It's exactly right. You earned your scholarship. You deserve to start college without worrying about whether you can afford shampoo." Maya hugged her in the middle of the store, tears streaming down her face. "I can't believe this is real." "Neither can I, baby. Neither can I." But the real transformation came in April when the stock certificates finally cleared. The securities attorney had worked through the complex process of converting Victor's paper shares to modern electronic holdings. One by one, the accounts were established, the shares transferred, the ownership confirmed. On April 15th, Victor's birthday, Sophia realized with a chill. She received an email with the final accounting. Applied Materials, $13.2 million Corning, $8.70 million Canon, $4.3 million Nikon, $3.8 million Zeiss, $2.9 million various others, $6.4 million. Total, $39.3 million. Sophia's 50% share, $19,650,000. She stared at the number until the digits blurred. $19,650,000. Her half. Catherine had the same amount. From stock certificates Victor had bought decades ago and held through market crashes and technology shifts and his own company's collapse. Catherine called 30 seconds after Sophia received the email. They both started crying before either could speak. He really did it, Catherine finally managed. My uncle really preserved a fortune and lost everything that mattered to him, Sophia said quietly. That's what makes this so heartbreaking. He had the means to be happy, to build relationships, to reconcile with you. But he chose business over family until it was too late. We're not going to make that mistake, Catherine said firmly. We're going to use this wealth the way he should have, to build something real. They met in person the next week to discuss strategy. The patent portfolio still needed to be sold, as did the special collection of artistic lenses and several historical prototypes they'd held back. But those could be liquidated slowly, strategically, to maximize value. They didn't need to rush anymore. They had more than enough to be secure for life. Sophia asked the question that had been weighing on her. What are you going to do with your share? Catherine smiled. I'm quitting my job. I've spent 30 years as a civil engineer because it paid well and was stable. But I never loved it. I'm going to travel, going to spend time with my son, going to volunteer with organizations that help young people pursue engineering degrees, going to actually live instead of just working. That's what Victor would want. What about you? Sophia thought about that. She had almost $20 million. She could retire at 39, never work again, live comfortably for the rest of her life. But the idea felt empty, purposeless. I'm going to finish my degree, she said. I dropped out when I was pregnant with Maya, 2 semesters short of graduating. I'm going back to RIT to complete my engineering degree. That's perfect. And then I'm going to start a company. Nothing big, nothing ambitious like Victor's operation. Just a small optical lab, maybe 5 or 6 employees. I want to train people the way I was trained. Give opportunities to single parents, people who've been laid off, people who need second chances. Victor would love that, Catherine said softly. He'd love that his wealth created opportunities instead of just sitting in a vault. There's something else I want to do. Sophia pulled out a folder she'd been preparing. I want to establish a scholarship. The Victor Apex Memorial Scholarship for single parents pursuing engineering degrees. Full tuition, housing, childcare stipend, everything needed to actually succeed. Starting with $50,000 a year, enough for 1 or 2 students. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. That's beautiful. Can I contribute? Make it $100,000 a year? Enough for 4 or 5 students. You want to put money into my scholarship idea? It's not your idea. It's our idea. Victor's legacy. We should do it together. They drafted the scholarship parameters that afternoon. Single parents or primary caregivers, pursuing STEM degrees, demonstrating financial need and academic merit. The Victor Apex Memorial Scholarship would be administered through a foundation they'd establish, ensuring it continued long after they were gone. Maya would be the first recipient, even though she already had a full academic scholarship to Vermont. The Apex Scholarship would cover her living expenses, books, and give her a stipend so she could focus on studies instead of working part-time. It felt right that Victor's great-niece daughter would benefit first from his preserved wealth. As word spread about Sophia's sudden fortune, reactions were mixed. Mr. Kowalski, her landlord, seemed suspicious. You went from owing rent to buying car and putting your kid through college? What did you do win the lottery? Something like that, Sophia said. She'd moved out of the studio apartment into a modest 3-bedroom house she'd purchased outright for $285,000. Nothing ostentatious, just clean and safe and warm. A place where Maya could have her own room, where Sophia could have a home office to plan her new business. Her former co-workers from Bin and Optical were surprised when she reached out. Sophia invited 12 of them to dinner at a nice restaurant in downtown Rochester. They came cautiously, unsure what to expect from the single mother who'd been laid off the same day they were. Over dinner, Sophia explained what had happened. The auction, the vault, the discovery. She showed them Victor's letters, explained his story, talked about what she'd learned from his regrets. "I've been where you are," she told them. "Unemployed, scared, wondering how to pay bills and keep skills sharp and find another job in an industry that's changed. So I'm starting a company. Monroe Optical. Small lab, high-quality work, fair wages. If any of you want to come work with me, I'd be honored to have you." She offered salaries 20% higher than Benin had paid, full benefits, profit sharing. 6 of them accepted on the spot. 2 more joined after thinking about it for a few days. By May, Sophia had a core team and was leasing equipment to set up the lab. But not everyone was supportive. Her ex-boyfriend Derek, Maya's father who'd vanished 18 years ago, somehow heard about the money and reappeared. He showed up at Sophia's new house in June, smiling like no time had passed. "Sophia, look at you doing so well. I always knew you'd make something of yourself." She stared at him through the screen door, not opening it. "What do you want, Derek?" "Just wanted to reconnect. See my daughter, you know? Maya's 18 now, heading to college." "That's amazing. I'd love to be part of her life again." "You've had 18 years to be part of her life." I know. I made mistakes. But I'm different now. More mature. And I heard you came into some money. I thought maybe we could work together on something. You know, a business opportunity." Sophia laughed, bitter and sharp. "Let me be very clear. You don't get to show up after 18 years and ask for money. You don't get to pretend you care about Maya when you've never paid $1 of child support. You don't get anything from me except this. Stay away from us, or I'll file for back child support and use my new resources to track down every penny you owe." Derek's smile faded. "That's cold, Sophia. That's justice. Now get off my property." He left, and Sophia never heard from him again. But the interaction stayed with her. It confirmed what she'd learned from Victor's story. Money revealed character. Some people became generous with wealth. Others became predatory. The test wasn't having money. It was what you did with it. In July, Monroe Optical officially opened in a renovated warehouse space on University Avenue. The building was modest but well-equipped, with modern grinding machines, quality control stations, and a comfortable break room where employees could actually relax. Sophia had designed the space herself, incorporating everything she'd hated about working at Benton and everything she'd loved about the craft. The opening ceremony was small. Sophia, Maya, Catherine, who flew in from Portland, the 8 employees, a few local business owners. They cut a ribbon. Sophia gave a short speech about second chances and honoring those who'd paved the way. She unveiled a plaque near the entrance. "In memory of Victor Apex, 1952 to 2016, optical pioneer whose preserved legacy created the opportunities that made this possible. May we build with wisdom what he learned too late to implement. That success is measured not in patents or profits, but in the people we help and the relationships we nurture." Beneath Victor's name, she'd added another, dedicated to all the single parents, laid-off workers, and second-chance seekers who refuse to give up. Your struggle matters. Your perseverance matters. You matter. The local news covered the opening. A reporter interviewed Sophia about her unusual story. Laid-off single mother buys condemned factory, discovers hidden fortune, starts her own company to help others. The story went regional, then national. Good Morning America called, wanted to do a segment. Sophia agreed to the interview, but insisted on controlling the narrative. She didn't want to be portrayed as lucky or as someone who'd stumbled into wealth. She wanted Victor's story told, his regrets, his final attempts at redemption, his documented wish that whoever found his vault would be someone who needed it and would use it wisely. The segment aired in August, just as Maya was preparing to leave for Vermont. Millions of people watched Sophia sit on the GMA couch and describe finding Victor's letters, reading his regrets, understanding that wealth without relationships was empty. "What did you learn from Victor Apex?" the host asked. "That time with people you love is the only thing that really matters. Victor spent 50 years building a fortune and died alone, filled with regret. I almost made a different version of the same mistake. I was so focused on survival that I stopped seeing my daughter. Stopped being present. Victor's gift gave me financial security, but his letters gave me something more important: perspective. Now I have time with Maya. Time to build a business that reflects my values. Time to help other people who are struggling the way I was. That's wealth. The money is just a tool to enable it. The interview resonated. The Victor Apex Memorial Scholarship received 600 applications in the first month from single parents across the country desperate for a chance to complete their education. Sophia and Catherine funded scholarships for 12 recipients that year, each one receiving full tuition and living expenses. One recipient, a 32-year-old single mother of 3 from Detroit named Angela Washington, wrote a letter that Sophia kept in her desk drawer. I cried when I got the scholarship notification. I've been working night shifts at a hospital while taking online classes toward my engineering degree. My kids are 6, 8, and 10. They barely see me because I'm always working or studying. This scholarship means I can go to school full-time. It means I can have dinner with my kids. It means my 8-year-old won't have to keep asking why mommy's always too tired to play. You and Victor Apex changed my life. I promise to work hard, graduate, and pay it forward to others who need help. Thank you for seeing people like me as worth investing in. Sophia read the letter at the first anniversary celebration of Monroe Optical. The company had grown to 15 employees, was profitable, and had a waiting list of opticians who wanted their lenses made by Sophia's team. They developed a reputation for quality that reminded old-timers of Apex Precision Lens in its prime. "This is why we're here," Sophia told her team, holding up Angela's letter. "Not just to make great lenses, though we do that, but to prove that second chances work. That investing in people who've struggled creates something valuable. That businesses can be profitable and purposeful." In September, as Maya started her sophomore year at Vermont, Sophia received an unexpected visitor. A woman in her mid-70s, elegant and sharp-eyed, introduced herself as Dorothy Apex, Victor's sister Rose's best friend. "I read about you in the news," Dorothy said over coffee at Sophia's house. "About finding Victor's vault. I wanted you to know something about him that didn't make it into any article." "What's that?" Victor wasn't always the workaholic hermit everyone remembers. When he was young, in his 20s and 30s, he was warm and funny. He loved taking his niece Catherine to the Science Museum. He'd spend hours explaining how lenses worked, making her laugh with silly demonstrations. He wanted a family, wanted children, but his first serious girlfriend left him because he worked too much. Then his second relationship fell apart for the same reason. By the time he realized work was consuming him, he'd lost the habit of relationships. It became easier to stay at the factory than to risk getting hurt again. "That's sad," Sophia said. "It is. But here's what you should know." Victor tried to change. In his 50s, he started going to therapy. He joined a book club, tried to make friends outside work. He was getting better at balancing. But then Rose died, and he retreated back into work. Then Catherine refused to reconcile, and he gave up entirely. The man who died alone wasn't the real Victor. He was the defeated version who'd stopped fighting. "Why are you telling me this?" Dorothy smiled. "Because I don't want you to remember Victor as just a cautionary tale. He was a good man who made mistakes. He tried to fix them. He failed, but he tried. And his final act, preserving that wealth for whoever needed it, writing those letters, trying to reach Catherine, that was the real Victor breaking through the defeated shell. You got to see the best of him in those letters. The man who cared about people and regretted wasting time on things that didn't matter." Sophia thought about that for days. Dorothy was right. She'd been viewing Victor as a tragic figure, a warning. But he was more complex than that. He'd struggled, tried, failed, and tried again. He'd learned hard lessons and tried to pass them on. He'd created something of value and, at the end, found a way to make it matter. In October, the patent portfolio finally sold. A consortium of optical manufacturing companies purchased the entire collection for $2.4 million, less than the estimated $2.8 million, but still substantial. They wanted the historical documentation, the technical specifications, the research notes that showed how Victor had solved complex engineering problems. Sophia and Catherine donated their shares from the patent sale, $1.2 million each, to establish endowments at 3 universities. RIT, where Sophia was finishing her degree, Portland State, where Catherine's son had graduated, and MIT for general scholarship purposes. The endowments would fund engineering scholarships in perpetuity, helping hundreds of students over the decades to come. The special collection of artistic lenses sold through a specialized auction house in November. Collectors from around the world bid on Victor's masterworks. The perfect spectrum lens, the one Victor had spent 2,847 hours grinding, sold for $380,000 to a private collector in Tokyo. Other pieces went to museums, universities, and serious collectors who appreciated the intersection of art and science. Total from a special collection, $4.7 million, split evenly between Sophia and Catherine. By December 2024, nearly a year after Sophia had bought the condemned factory for $500, the final accounting was complete. Rare earth elements, $100,000 historical prototypes, $3.2 million stock certificates, $39.3 million patent portfolio, $2.4 million special collection, $4.7 million. Total, $49.7 million. After taxes, legal fees, and expenses, Sophia and Catherine each netted approximately $21.5 million. Sophia sat in her home office, looking at the bank statements that showed balances she still couldn't quite process as real. $21 million. She'd come from negative $3,000 a year ago, overdrawn accounts, and max credit cards. Now she had more wealth than she could spend in 5 lifetimes. Maya knocked on the doorframe. "Mom? You okay?" "Just thinking. This time last year, we were 3 weeks from eviction. I just spent my last $500 on a building I'd never seen. I thought I was making the stupidest decision of my life. Turned out to be the best decision. Maybe. Or maybe the best decision was being honest with Catherine. Or choosing to honor Victor's wishes instead of keeping everything. Or deciding to use the money to help others instead of just hoarding it." Maya sat on the edge of the desk. "You know what I think the best decision was?" "What?" "Reading Victor's letters and actually learning from them. Lots of people would have found that money and not changed anything about how they lived. They just have more money while making the same mistakes. You didn't do that. You changed. We changed." Sophia hugged her daughter tight. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from watching you. Watching you struggle and keep going. Watching you make impossible choices and somehow choose right. Watching you put me first even when it cost you everything. You were always worth it. I know. That's the point. You show me that loving someone means sacrifice. That family matters more than money. That second chances are real. Victor taught you that in his letters. You taught me that in your life." In December, exactly 1 year after buying the factory, Sophia hosted a celebration at Monroe Optical. She invited everyone who'd been part of the journey. Catherine and her family, Dr. Park who'd authenticated the prototypes, the securities attorney who'd converted the stock certificates, her employees, Maya's teachers, even Detective Torres who'd caught Gerald Morrison. She'd also invited the 12 Victor Apex Memorial Scholarship recipients, including Angela Washington, who flew in from Detroit with her 3 children. Sophia gave a speech, standing in the middle of the workshop floor, where her employees made lenses with the same precision Victor had demanded. "A year ago, I was desperate, unemployed, broke, about to be evicted. I made a crazy gamble on a condemned factory because I had nothing left to lose. What I found in that building changed my life. But it wasn't just the money. It was Victor Apex's story. His regrets, his warnings, his final acts of attempted redemption. Victor spent 50 years building a fortune and died alone, wishing he'd spent that time building relationships instead. He wrote letters begging whoever found his vault to learn from his mistakes, to choose people over profit, to be better than he was. I've tried to honor that. This company exists because Victor's wealth gave me the means to create it. But it succeeds because of the people in this room who show up every day and do excellent work. The scholarship exists because Victor wished he'd helped more people. But it changes lives because 12 single parents this year got a chance they wouldn't have had otherwise. None of this is about me being smart or lucky. It's about Victor creating an opportunity and me being in the right place to receive it. It's about Catherine choosing generosity over greed when she could have fought for everything. It's about all of you choosing to be part of something that matters. She pulled out a photograph, the one from Victor's office, showing him with his workers in the 1980s. Victor Apex was a complicated man, brilliant and flawed, successful and lonely. But at the end, he tried to make things right. This photo reminds me that businesses are really about people. The person who builds them, the people who work in them, the people who benefit from them. Victor forgot that for most of his life. We're not going to forget it here. She unveiled a new addition to the memorial plaque by the door. Beneath Victor's dedication, she'd added, "And in memory of all those who struggle, sacrifice, and refuse to give up, may you find the second chances you deserve. May your perseverance be rewarded. May you build lives of meaning, not just survival." This company stands as proof that second chances are real, that honesty is rewarded, and that wealth used wisely creates ripples that touch lives far beyond your own. Victor Apex preserved a fortune in a vault. We're preserving his legacy by doing what he wished he'd done. Choosing people over profit, family over success, and meaning over money. The room was silent. Then Angela Washington stood up, tears streaming down her face. "I want to say something, if that's okay." Sophia nodded. "I'm a 32-year-old single mother. I've been working night shifts and taking online classes for 3 years, trying to become an engineer. My kids barely saw me. I was exhausted all the time. I was starting to think I'd never finish, that it was stupid to even try. Then I got the scholarship notification. I didn't believe it at first. I thought it was a scam, but it was real. And now I'm enrolled full-time at Wayne State University. My kids have their mom back. I have hope again. That's what Victor's money bought. Not things. Hope. And I promise you, Miss Chen, when I graduate and get a good job, I'm going to help another single parent the way you helped me. I'm going to keep this going." One by one, the other scholarship recipients stood and shared similar stories. Single parents who'd been working multiple jobs while trying to finish degrees. People who'd given up hope until the scholarship gave them a second chance. Students who were now thriving because someone had invested in them. Sophia couldn't stop crying. This was what Victor had wanted. Not his wealth sitting in a vault, but his wealth creating opportunities, changing lives, rippling outward in ways he'd never see but would have cherished. Catherine stood last. "I need to say something about my uncle. I was angry at him for years. I felt abandoned, betrayed. I refused to reconcile. When he died, I felt guilty but also relieved I didn't have to deal with him anymore. Then Sophia found his letters, found out he'd tried to reach me, that he'd forgiven me, that he'd preserved a fortune specifically for me. I was devastated that I'd wasted years being stubborn." She paused, collecting herself. But then I realized something. Victor's greatest gift wasn't the money. It was the lesson. He showed me what happens when you choose pride over relationships, when you let work consume you, when you forget what actually matters. I spent 30 years as an engineer because it was safe and paid well. I didn't love it, but I was too afraid to change. Victor's fortune gave me the freedom to quit, to travel, to spend time with my son, to actually live. But more importantly, his regrets gave me permission to change course, to choose differently, to be brave. She looked at Sophia, and Sophia showed me what grace looks like. She could have kept everything. The law was probably on her side, but she chose honesty, chose to honor Victor's wishes, chose to split everything fairly. That choice changed both our lives. It showed me that good people still exist, that doing the right thing still matters. I'm grateful to my uncle for the money, but I'm grateful to Sophia for the example. The evening ended with food, laughter, and stories. Maya showed the scholarship recipients around the optical lab, explaining the lens-making process with enthusiasm that made Sophia swell with pride. Dr. Part discussed Victor's technical innovations with current engineers, passing on knowledge that might otherwise have been lost. Catherine and Sophia planned their next scholarship expansion. They wanted to fund 25 students next year, 50 the year after. As people left, Detective Torres pulled Sophia aside. "Morrison took a plea deal. 6 months probation, community service. He's been ordered to stay away from you and the property. Is he still bitter?" Torres shrugged. "Probably, but he's 68 years old with a criminal record now. He's not a threat anymore. And for what it's worth, Miss Chen, what you've done with that money is remarkable. Most people who find a fortune like that, they disappear into wealth. Buy mansions, fancy cars, spend it on themselves. You built something that helps others. That's rare. I learned from Victor that money doesn't mean anything if it's just sitting there. It has to do something, has to create something. As Torres left, Sophia stood in the doorway of Monroe Optical, watching the December snowfall. 1 year. 1 year since she'd stood at the fence of condemned factory, her last $500 spent, terrified she'd made a catastrophic mistake. 1 year since she'd found Victor's letters and learned that sometimes the greatest gifts come from the greatest regrets. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maya. Mom, Vermont sent my spring semester bill. The Apex scholarship covered everything plus gave me a $2,000 stipend for books and expenses. I can't believe this is my life now. Sophia smiled. Neither could she, but it was real. She'd gambled on a condemned factory and found fortune. She'd chosen honesty over deception and gained a partner in Catherine. She'd chosen purpose over comfort and built a business that mattered. She'd chosen to honor a dead man's wishes and changed dozens of lives in the process. Her phone rang. Catherine, I just got an email from the foundation. We've received over 3,000 scholarship applications for next year. 3,000 single parents trying to finish engineering degrees. We can't fund them all, but Sophia, we can fund 50. 50 families whose lives will change because Victor preserved his wealth and you found it. 50 families this year. Maybe 100 next year. Maybe more if we're strategic. Victor would be so proud of you, of what we've built, of how we've honored his legacy. I think he'd be happy we learned from his mistakes instead of repeating them. After hanging up, Sophia sat in her office and pulled out Victor's letters. She'd read them dozens of times, but they still resonated. A man at the end of his life, filled with regret, trying to make amends, trying to pass on wisdom earned through mistakes, trying to ensure his wealth mattered. She picked up a pen and began writing her own letter, not to anyone specific, but to the future, to whoever might need it someday, to whoever reads this. My name is Sophia Chen. A year ago, I was unemployed, broke, and desperate. I spent my last $500 on a condemned factory and found $50 million hidden in its basement. That fortune changed my life. But what really transformed me was reading Victor Apex's letters about his regrets. If you're reading this, you've probably found success or wealth or both. Maybe you worked hard for it. Maybe you stumbled into it like I did. Either way, I want to tell you what I learned. Money is just a tool. It has no inherent meaning. What matters is what you do with it. Do you hoard out of fear? Do you spend it on things that don't matter? Or do you use it to create opportunities for others, to build something meaningful, to make the world slightly better than you found it? Victor Apex spent 50 years building a fortune and died alone, wishing he'd spent that time on relationships instead. I almost made a different version of the same mistake, so focused on survival that I forgot to actually live. His wealth gave me security, but his warnings gave me wisdom. Choose people over profit. Choose time with family over time at work. Choose helping others over accumulating more. Choose experiences over possessions. Choose love over success. Those aren't platitudes. They're hard-won truths from people who learned them too late. Victor learned them and tried to pass them on through his letters. I'm learning them and passing them on to you. Don't wait until you're dying to realize what matters. Don't spend your whole life building wealth only to discover you're surrounded by things, but no one to share them with. Don't choose pride over reconciliation, work over family, success over love. Use your wealth to lift others. Create opportunities. Be generous. Build something that outlasts you. Not in monetary value, but in impact, in lives changed, in ripples that spread long after you're gone. That's what Victor tried to do at the end. That's what I'm trying to do now. That's what I hope you'll do too. Sophia Chen, December 2024. She folded the letter and placed it in a safe in her office. Maybe someday someone would need to read it. Maybe her wisdom, hard-won through struggle and learned from Victor's mistakes, would help someone else choose differently. The snow was falling harder now, covering Rochester in white. Sophia locked up Monroe Optical and drove home through quiet streets. Tomorrow she'd return to RIT for her final semester of classes. In May, at age 40, she'd finally graduate with her engineering degree, 18 years after dropping out to raise Maya. Catherine would fly in for the ceremony. Maya would take time off from Vermont. They'd celebrate not just a degree, but a journey completed, a promise kept to herself. The house was warm when she arrived. Her house, purchased outright. No mortgage, just a home where she and Maya could be safe and comfortable. She made tea and sat in the living room, looking at the photographs on the wall. Maya at various ages. Sophia with her daughter at science museums, parks, school events. Catherine and Sophia at the Monroe Optical opening. The scholarship recipients at their celebration. In one photograph Sheed had restored and framed. Victor Apex in his factory, surrounded by workers, smiling in a moment captured before everything fell apart. She'd placed it in a position of honor, reminding herself daily that success without relationships was empty, that wealth without meaning was just numbers on a page, that what mattered most was who you helped and who you loved. The doorbell rang. Sophia opened it to find Angela Washington on her doorstep, snowflakes in her hair. "Miss Chun, I'm so sorry to drop by unannounced. I'm flying back to Detroit tomorrow, but I wanted to give you something." She handed Sophia a small wrapped package. "Open it." Inside was a lens, small and delicate, ground and polished with obvious care. It wasn't technically perfect, there were slight imperfections in the curvature. But it was beautiful. "I made it," Angela said, "in one of my engineering classes. It's not good enough to use, but I wanted you to have it, to show you that your investment is paying off. I'm learning to do what Victor did, to make things that bend light and help people see. Because of you, because of the scholarship, I'm becoming the engineer I always wanted to be." Sophia held the lens up to the light. It caught and refracted the glow from her porch lamp, creating small rainbows on the snow. Imperfect but beautiful. A beginning, not an ending. "This is the most meaningful gift anyone's given me," Sophia said honestly. "Thank you, Angela." After Angela left, Sophia placed the lens on her desk beside Victor's letters. A reminder that the journey continued, that the ripples spread, that Victor's preserved fortune and Sophia's choice to use it wisely were creating new engineers, new opportunities, new lives. She thought about the year that had passed, the terror of buying a condemned factory, the awe of finding Victor's vault, the complexity of authenticating and liquidating assets, the fear when Morrison broke in, the joy of paying off debts and securing Maya's future, the purpose she'd found in building Monroe Optical and establishing the scholarship. It had been the hardest and best year of her life. And it had all started with a desperate gamble, a $500 bet that had paid off beyond imagination. Not because of the money, though that helped, but because of what she'd learned, who she'd helped, and how she'd chosen to honor a dead man's final wish to matter. Victor Apex had built a fortune and preserved it for whoever needed it most. He died hoping that person would be good, would be struggling, would use the wealth wisely. Sophia Chen had been that person, and she'd proven that second chances were real, that honesty was rewarded, that choosing right over easy could transform not just one life, but dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands over time. The snow continued to fall. Inside her warm house, surrounded by photographs and memories and the promise of tomorrow, Sophia closed her eyes and whispered to Victor's ghost, "I hope I made you proud. I hope I honored your legacy. I hope I learned from your mistakes and built something you'd have wanted to build if you'd had the chance." And somewhere in the space between memory and hope, she felt certain Victor Apex was smiling, finally at peace, his regrets transformed into redemption through a stranger's kindness and a fortune that had finally, after years of preservation, been put to good use. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.